Hello everybody, and welcome to the Kingdom Hearts Recoded cutscene commentary. Yes, we are continuing on our cutscene commentary road, this time with Recoded, and it's going to be delightful. Obviously, this is once again on the Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5 HD remix collection that was released on the PS4, and I'm still very grateful that that is a thing, because it's just like an absolute godsend, really. But yes, Recoded is another of the games that was released on the DS, which is delightful. Originally, the game was Kingdom Hearts Coded, which came out on mobile phones exclusively in Japan. But then they made the smart decision to, release it on a console that people could, actually play. And that meant that we all got to experience the story of Coded/Recoded, which admittedly is one of the most pointless, I feel, stories in the entire franchise, if only because it answers one question and that is it. Basically, there are a few other things that it does sort of do, and it does tie into a few other bits and pieces. And from what I remember of playing it, it is a relatively fun game. It's not perfect. I'd say gameplay-wise, it is it's an improvement on what they did with Days. It's definitely a lot more playable than Days, but I think just the general craziness of the story did rub quite a few people up the wrong way. So it ended up being quite middling in the grand scheme of things for a lot of people. But generally, it's still a worthwhile story to experience within the Kingdom Hearts world, shall we say, because even though the one bit that it kind of does reveal is quite, I suppose, importance is relative, I suppose, in terms of a whole bunch of stuff that gets revealed here. But it's something that we can discuss as, we go along. And obviously you can probably tell that, once again, I do love a bit of Simple and Clean, I do love a bit of Sanctuary, in whatever version they turn up in. But considering, generally they do cause all sorts of copyright issues on YouTube, that's why I've just been blathering for the past kind of 3 minutes nearly straight to try and, cover up that all happening so that I can, hopefully not lose the video, which would be bad, but also because I want you to see the full game in all its glory as it should be. But yes, this is what we're dealing with. It's quite important that you listen to this.
To tell the truth, neither one was easy, but I sure was glad to be the cricket to write down what happened. 2 journeys, both sitting quiet right here in these 2 books. But now, looks like the only thing left in one of them is a single line. Of course, maybe that's because they're the only words this book was meant to hold. And it's time to close it for good. But who exactly is this nominee?
A mysterious message.
Uh-huh. I certainly didn't write it. And I never once let the journal out of my sight. I don't know when anybody would have had a chance to.
Their hurting will be mended. Gosh, Jiminy. Sounds like somebody needs help and doesn't know what to do. Let's get to the bottom of this.
Of course, but how? All the other pages are completely blank.
Sure, the words you wrote are gone, but that doesn't mean the journal is empty.
So yeah, this is the quirk of Recoded, is that we're using Jiminy's first journal, which is obviously the one that got erased during the course of Chain of Memories, and only had Thank Namine in it, but now it's got that extra statement in it, and in order to deal with it, they're digitising it so that they can access all of the worlds that remain within the journal as data. It's weird. Especially considering all of these are filled with bugs and all that jazz. It's, quite frankly, a bizarre concept, but hey, it's Kingdom Hearts, and to be honest, at this point with the franchise, I'm quite willing to accept a lot of stuff that maybe isn't necessarily stuff that I normally should be accepting, but somehow Kingdom Hearts, I think, plays things off with such a level of sincerity that I can't help but just be like, take me along on your wild ride, Tetsuya Nomura, because I'm probably going to enjoy it wherever you take me on this, so, on this wild ride, so I'm in for the long haul now. I'll take what I can get.
Somebody to explore the data from the inside.
And I think we know just the guy to do it. Am I right, fellas?
So yes, for the entirety of KH-coded/recoded, we get to play as a Data Sora, because it's Sora, but he's a data version of himself, and it's kind of strange, but I mean, I suppose it's equally as strange hearing KH2 Sora's voice come out of KH1 Sora's body as it was in Chain of Memories. But at this point, we've kind of heard more of that type of Sora's voice than his original voice. So really, what they probably should have done is, you know, redubbed the original Kingdom Hearts. But still, it's fine, and it works, and there's a lot of interesting philosophical questions that Coded asks as well. It's one of the things that Kingdom Hearts does quite a lot of, like, what is like a soul, what is a heart? Same question, effectively. But also, can something that shouldn't have a heart be able to get a heart?
What was that about?
And that whole thing of artificial intelligence and all that jazz, and it's fascinating and certainly worth looking into, I suppose, and discussing. I suppose as we go through this movie, because obviously it's a movie, much like Days was, it'll work out. There's plenty of time in which to discuss this sort of stuff. It's another 3 hours, pretty much.
Well, you see,
so, as with Days, I will be picking and choosing when I decide to have long, rambling conversations, and other moments where I'll just sort of, you know, let the story speak for itself. Because once again, it's that whole thing of doing a cutscene commentary that, personally, I am not necessarily used to doing. I mean, really, Days,
Who could that be?
and what I did for Chain of Memories and this, and what I'm going to go on to do for the other movie in the franchise. It's not something that I've really done before, outside of doing, like, you know, movie commentaries on Hellfire Comms, but they're already a very different kettle of fish because they're movie commentaries, and also it's not me syncing up my audio to the footage and all that jazz, and also it's more of a conversation than me blathering at a computer for 45 frickin' minutes. To begin with. Yeah, this is quite a long opening part. The final part, from what I remember of how I've split it up, is also quite long, but it's just because of how Recoded story fits. It's just a slightly...
Use my what?
I don't want to say lopsided, but I sort of do in the sense that
What's this?
its opening chunk is quite long and its ending chunk is quite long, but you can get through most of the middle stuff pretty quickly.
But don't ever forget, keep your life.
And I suppose in a way that's sort of ultimately what we've got in terms of how these parts have been split up. So I suppose whilst we're going through all of this, it's worth talking about the development of Coded and its route to how we get to where we are with this cutscene commentary. So the original Coded was announced at the same time as Birth by Sleep and 358 of 2 Days. In mid-2007, Tetsuya Nomura mentioned a desire to create a spin-off game for the franchise on a mobile platform and wanted it to play slightly different than the other titles in the series. The game's concept was devised by Nomura, who wanted to make the game feel like a playground for fans.
How'd I get back here?
Hajime Tabata, who was one of the directors on the game, originally thought the plan was terrible but still interesting. Originally, the story was supposed to be relatively fluid and was not really supposed to fit into the chronology of the KH series, but it was eventually tied in to Birth by Sleep and Days. And to be honest, considering all of the way Kingdom Hearts connects together, it makes sense to tie it into the chronology and stuff.
And we're friends.
Something that the team did plan to do was to make use of mobile phones' communication abilities to facilitate interaction between players. And it was developed with 3D and 2D graphics so that you were able to play it on a range of mobile phones for distribution overseas, though that ultimately didn't happen. The game was designed around hardware more powerful than any that was yet available, like Final Fantasy Agato, but the developers weren't as aggressive with boundary pushing with Coded, so the idea was to try and get it overseas on mobile platforms, because mobile phones overseas at that time were not that powerful. I mean, you've got to think, like 2007 was start of the iPhone, I feel. Like, seriously, that was sort of like early doors for that sort of new high-tech mobile phones for us. Early screenshots showed the game in a widescreen format, based on the idea that more future models of phones would have a swivel screen, but there were very few mobile phones that were able to support those specifications, and in the US it was just impossible. So the planned expansion to all the Japanese phone carriers from where it began and to the US just weren't possible and were just cut. Obviously, as I said, it was announced at the same time as Birth by Sleep and Days at the Tokyo Game Show in 2007, where initially it was shown off in a photo-prohibited theatre, and then new trailers were, I believe, sort of officially shown at 2008 Jump Festa in December 2007, and a sort of Disney private party in August 2008. There were then playable demonstrations, as well as new trailers and so on and so forth, and early trailers highlighted the gameplay, while later ones focused more on the game's story, the idea of it being to fill in some of the plot holes that we felt were present in the original Kingdom Hearts. The game, so Coded, was first released pre-installed on the Docomo Prime Series P01A mobile phone. Initially, a lot of mobile phones offered, or mobile games were just free content, so Nomura wanted to try to plan a new business model, and that included creating a portal called Kingdom Hearts Mobile, which allowed the users to create avatars and play minigames. And basically, as technology improved, they wanted to add online gameplay. I don't know whether that ever actually happened. But Coded came out in, it sort of initially in 2008 with the preview episode, but the main game came out in episodes in 2009. So starting in June 3rd, 2009 with episode 1, Destiny Islands, going all the way through to episode 8, which was released in January 28th, 2010.
Which world could they mean?
So they went through quite a phase and got there in the end.
Look up there on
And
the
surprisingly enough, the game was discontinued for download on Japanese mobile phones on April 30th, 2013. So it took them a while to kind of completely ditch the original Coded.
Guess I'm okay.
But
what was that?
obviously you've got the whole thing of
This world has been connected.
dealing with
It's you.
Now stay.
getting the story west. Because you can't do it on mobile phones, because people can't play on mobile phones, or at least they couldn't really at the time, or at least
don't
phones
understand
weren't
that.
in fully the
Is it a
position
riddle?
to
So what am I
play the
supposed to do
game,
with that?
and even what they had done, because obviously it would have been coded to suit the mobile phone that it was introduced on, it would have been a difficult transition to get it on something like the iPhones, which still weren't that prevalent. They were starting to get there, but still weren't majorly there.
That.
So, in May 2010, there was a sort of a little bit of a spoiler, I suppose, in the sense that, sadly, Eddie Carroll, who had been voicing
He said,
Jiminy Cricket
"Make this place
for
whole. The keyhole's the
like
place."
33 years, I
Must have
think.
meant this.
So over 35 years, Eddie Carroll started voicing Jiminy Cricket, it seems,
Roger that.
in the
I'll try.
1977 Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Colour, and voiced him all the way through to 2008's Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories, and obviously did a delightful job as everyone's favourite Cricket,
Yeah.
having taken over from the original voice actor
What's
Cliff
happened to our
Edwards, and another gentleman who I think had a very short period of time
If I get
in the
rid of it,
role.
will the island
So yeah,
be
sadly Eddie Carroll passed away in 2010. I think early 2010 actually.
I got it.
And so, obviously Disney, as they do, they brought in a new voice actor for the character, which was Phil Snyder, who I'm not entirely sure sort of what other major stuff he had done before then, and I mean apparently he has now retired from voice acting, so I have no idea what the current situation is of Jiminy Cricket. Okay, never mind. He is currently voiced by Joe Ockman. So Phil Snyder took over the role, and basically, in May 2010, he wrote on his official website that he was recording his first voice work as Jiminy for the game Kingdom Hearts Recoded. Obviously, at the time, nobody knew that Recoded was a thing. So most people thought that it was going to be a remake of Coded in the same way that Rechain of Memories brought Chain of Memories to the PS2. But there were sort of no real thoughts, nothing was confirmed until E3 2010, when Recoded was officially unveiled as a game for the Nintendo DS.
Do you think Sora's alright?
So,
I'm tracking him now.
obviously Nomura wanted to re-release Coded, because it never made it west, and really why would you want to have a relatively important part, not hugely important, but still important, part of Kingdom Hearts lore not making it west? That would be bad, because then a whole bunch of your fans are going to miss out on important details. Initially, he was considering releasing it on the Wii through WiiWare, primarily so that players could download the game in chapters, just like the mobile phone original. And sort of the prime reason for wanting to re-release the game was to reach a broader audience. So even though obviously the Wii had done gangbusters, the DS was still, you know, supreme in a way. So since it was the most popular portable video game system in America and Europe at the time, that was chosen as the primary platform. The development team had originally planned on just simply re-releasing the game, but they selected Hand, who helped them with Kingdom Hearts 3 for over 2 days, and at that point sort of they considered a remake in some form. Nomura asked for an as-is recreation of the original game, but then the game cartridge just wasn't full, so they thought, well, you know what, well, let's just go for a full 3D remake. And it took them about a year's worth of work,
I wonder what's
and
going on
Hand
inside
told
the
Nomura
jar.
that the task was nearly impossible. I mean, to be fair, whenever you're kind of making such a port, it is in a way very complex, very difficult, and quite challenging. Because obviously I mean, you've got the same kind of issues with obviously the transition from Chain of Memories to Re-Chain of Memories, and other games of that ilk where they have made pretty big 3D transitions. And hilariously, the scale of the game grew so large that the Square Enix team in Osaka that had worked on Birth by Sleep were brought in to assist to make sure that the game got completed. Which is just like one of those things where you just go, really? They did that? But they did. And that's how the game got finished. The lower screen was ultimately used similarly to Days.
Hey, wait! The island!
But
What happened back on the
gameplay
island?
mechanics of the original would just change completely, because lack of an analog control stick on the DS was a
I'm glad to
challenge.
hear that.
So they ended up going with the more
So,
simplified
now
combat
I'm in a
system and
strange
mechanics
town.
that had obviously sort
Why?
of pseudo-originated in
Is this place
Days
full
and
of
Birth by
glitches
Sleep.
too?
Although it was very much more Birth by Sleep's style of gameplay than Days'.
All right. I'll see what I
Which
can find.
was closer, obviously, to the original
Something
Kingdom Hearts,
strange
but
was
wasn't
happening
quite
in that one,
close.
too.
It wasn't quite
Huey,
perfect.
Dewey, and Louie decided to go investigate.
The story obviously didn't
You'll have
change,
to find
but they
them.
did add in
Promise said
more
you'd bring 'em back
scenes
safe and
and
sound.
included a secret movie in that release, with a few hints about the then unreleased Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance, which had been unveiled.
Yeah, I remember it too.
And sort of they took a few elements from other titles, including sort of pseudo replication of the leveling system from Days, and also the random encounter system from Kingdom Hearts
So Guthrie and
Mobile,
three became friends.
and ultimately came out in Japan October 7th, 2010, and in the West in January 2011. So I mean, it took us probably the longest it has ever taken us to get a game from in the Kingdom Hearts franchise at that point, because obviously the initial release, so to speak, was 2009, so you're talking like 2 full years before
What do you think?
we got anywhere near it, but that's okay, because I'm glad that we did get Recoded in the form that it was in, because it was pretty playable and pretty enjoyable, although it did have its issues, which I will go on to talk about.
Possible that the entire data world has been
Um,
fragmented, and that it's
obviously,
not a whole entity like we first
there
thought.
is well, the fact that we're watching a cutscene commentary right now tells you that they decided not to, you know, try and port it to the PS3/4, because that would have been ridiculous. When HD 1.5 Remix came out, there were clips of Recoded in the credits for the collection, which hinted at its inclusion in another collection. And then in October 2013, Square Enix announced that Recoded will be part of Kingdom Hearts HD 2.5 Remix collection. In the same vein as Days, because due to the touchscreen use on the DS, console conversion was just ruled out entirely, because it would necessitate a much fuller remake than any of the other games that they would have been dealing with. I mean, obviously, you look at like Birth by Sleep, that's a pretty simple
Go to Sith and
port
wait.
in a way. Dreamed Up Distance, which they did actually end up porting in 2.8, well, 2.8 HD Final Chapter Prologue.
Hey, is
Yeah.
this another fracture?
Sorry, I just had to pick up my case there, because I'm currently recording Dreamed Up Distance. To make sure I got that title right. So they did do it for that, but once again I'd say that was an easier one. There were only certain elements where the touchscreen was used, so it was a much easier conversion.
This is exactly
So
like the keyhole that
they
guy
decided
left for me back on the island.
to animate it, as they did do for Days,
I found another
but
keyhole
to
like the one from the
ultimately
island.
upgrade
This
it in a
works the
way
same way as the one
by
before.
adding in
All I gotta do is defeat
extra
whatever enemy is
cinematics
inside this
for the
keyhole.
game to cover the entire story and show the game's connection to other KH titles. So basically, additional events occur in cinematic scenes that weren't seen in the
I'll
original.
crawl inside and
There's
give that thing a
all new
piece of my
voice
mind.
acting
When I'm done, the town
for
ought to be
all the
just
extra
fine.
scenes,
Hey, I
and
gotta
the
try.
audio is orchestrated, and it's definitely a much
You can
more
count on that.
successful movie, shall I say, than Days was, because Days, I think, was effectively, let's just take the cutscenes we had and put them in and then just talk
Did you see me?
over
How do you like
the
that?
replacement stuff.
Huh?
Well, like over the
Why
bits
are
where
the
they
blocks still
didn't
here?
want to animate it.
Am I
And while
missing
there are a few
something?
instances of non-animated stuff in here, we've already seen a few, you have, I'm pretty sure it's generally Mickey narrating them. But they're quite few and far between, and you do actually have a lot more of these animated cutscenes, which do make it a much easier ride to experience, I feel,
Alright, here
because you are very much more watching a cutscene for the entire time, rather than having sort of this stoppy-starty stuff. And also because of the way in which Recoded story is structured, it's not as repetitive as Days was, and that certainly improves things a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm very proud of myself, because that has
about
been
that guy
about kind of
Black Hood.
a near 20 minutes of just straight
He could be
talking.
the one behind this whole mess.
And I mean, sometimes, you know, when you get off on a tangent, you're a bit like, woo-wee! I have, just been going on a
another new
complete
entry.
tangent, but that was actually relatively on point. And, that worked out quite nicely, actually, in
Looks to
my
me
mind
like a new
anyway.
message gets added every time a world inside the journal's repaired.
Yeah, just like before.
See, I'm gonna have to make sure, you know, that I don't completely blather on as I perhaps have been. But, hey, I've covered sort of a few major key points there, so I'm gonna chill out for the rest of this part. Like, I mean, I know I've got another kind of 17 minutes or so, but still. Now, this is one of the things that actually, I say I'm going to be quiet, I'm not going to be quiet for now. This is one of the interesting things, is that, yeah, Recoded filled in a few of those gaps, as I said, showing scenes of things that we didn't see in the original Kingdom
Well, I sure
Hearts,
didn't write
sort of
anything
like
like
answering
that in the
how
journal.
Pluto ends up disappearing
Maybe the journal's trying
from
to tell us something.
Traverse Town, and nobody noticed that he'd gone.
Here in the castle? What now?
But yes, Mickey, go murder those Heartless.
We gotta check the rest of the castle now. It won't open. Hey! Hello! Anybody out there?
This is not our day.
Well, fellas, I hate to say this, but we're trapped.
Well, what? But there can be heartless roaming the castle.
Huh?
Huh? What's that?
Undo the hurt to unbar the way.
Gorsh, we're trying. It said we've already undone some of it, right?
Well then, we'll just have to keep going. repairing the journal's data as fast as we can.
Whoa! Your Majesty, I think Sora just might have reached the next world.
But we gotta do something about the castle.
I'm as worried as you are, Donald. But right now, our best hope is fixing up the journal.
Okay.
Whoa, look at all these blocks.
Sora, it's Mickey. Do you read me?
Yeah, I can hear you. But where'd the town go? I was just there a second ago.
I wish I knew, Sora, but I can't figure out what's happening. It's all a really big mystery. The only thing I can think of is that maybe when you defeated the enemy in the keyhole, you were sent someplace else. I saw a message that said, undo the hurt to unbar the way. That might mean that mending the hurt in one world is the key to opening up a road to the next world.
I don't know much about what's going on. What I do know is that after I beat the enemy, I ended up right here. And from the looks of this place, this world could probably use some help.
I think you're right, Sora. And if this world's like the others, in order to fix it, you'll have to find the keyhole and defeat whatever enemy is hiding inside.
But if I do that, then I'm just gonna get blasted off into the unknown again, won't I? I'm good with that. Yeah, I'll help in any way I can. I'll go and track down whatever it is that you need me to take care of.
That's great, Sora. Thanks.
Ah!
Who's that?
Please help!
The Heartless! I've got this. Stay back.
So, obviously we are in Wonderland now, and
You okay?
Yes, thank you.
actually what is fascinating is that this is one of the instances where
And you?
one of the original voice actors for a character is still alive in Disney, but has since been replaced.
I can't remember.
So, obviously Catherine Beaumont, who originally provided the voices of Alice and Alice in Wonderland in the original film, and Wendy Darling in the original Peter Pan, actually voiced the characters in Kingdom Hearts, and did a phenomenal job of it, actually, considering, you know, the gap in age from when she voiced those. Like, still sounded pretty much as she was. But both roles, she has been replaced by
I believe I saw one.
Hynden Walsh, who, while she does a great job as Alice here, this is sort of the first time that she actually voices Alice in Kingdom Hearts, it's so noticeably different to me that my brain just goes, this doesn't sound right, this doesn't sound right, this doesn't sound right, and it is not anything to do with Hynden Walsh's ability as a voice actress, because she's amazing. I mean, she is incredible for reading Kid Icarus Uprising, and she's done a whole bunch of other excellent voice roles, including being Starfire in Teen Titans and all sorts of other roles. She's great, but in my head, just hearing not Catherine Beaumont was a bit of a shock, actually, when I was watching
Oh, if I could only.
this, because it was just like, this isn't the voice that I'm used to, and it's a thing of, obviously, as you are moving on with things and getting used to other bits and bobs,
Yes,
it's a bit
of course.
strange.
Of course, my name is Alice.
Hey, that's great.
And I
Your
mean,
memory's back.
while
So
Disney
that
generally do a
keyhole,
pretty good
Do you
job
have any
of
idea where you
finding
might have seen it?
sound-alikes, I mean,
Let me
obviously
think
Jim
for a
Cummings is
moment.
an excellent one for
If I
that,
recall correctly,
and
they had a
also
sort of
you got the
bell.
I mean, I would
That's
say
right.
Phil Snyder
Do you know where?
and well, pretty much all the people who have
I'm afraid I'm
voiced
still
Jiminy
very
over the years have done a pretty good job of being a sound-alike. I
I
don't think that Hynden Walsh is necessarily
Okay.
the perfect
So if I
sound-alike
keep on
for
giving her
Alice.
inklings, she'll eventually
but
remember where she saw the keyhole.
I can live with that because
But where
ultimately
can I find more inklings?
these
Perhaps
things
one way,
happen and
or another
you
way,
can't always help
only
it. She does a good
between
job and therefore I can live with it. But also can I just say how strange it is to hear any game saying the word inklings and it
Just
not
stay right
referring
here.
to little squids
That's right.
that are kids.
Sort it out and end the hurt.
And, oh, mysterious cloaked figure, you're always helpful, aren't you?
And your next road still awaits.
Would you tell me what you want?
No, he will not, clearly. But yes,
Does that
inklings.
ring some kind of bell for you, Jiminy?
I immediately splink.
reports,
I immediately think of
happen to remember
Splatoon.
what it
Oh
was that
god,
they
Splink
called the mayonnaise?
Splatoon is what I was clearly gonna say. But yes, it makes me think of Splatoon because that's they're inklings.
Gosh, is that your second
It
German
has
hit?
ultimately probably completely ruined that word for me. God damn you, Splatoon and Nintendo.
The first journal
But-
in which, thank none of
Hey, I
us
suppose it could be worse.
But as far as I can tell,
Word association
second
can
journal
throw up
seems to be
some
just
truly
fine.
bizarre situations, and that is
nominating
certainly
may
not
have
the
something to
worst
do
it
with
could
it?
be.
Well, I can't be absolutely certain, but I have a feeling that that may be what's going on.
Guess we better wait and see what happens.
Hey, Alice, I'm back.
I hope you're here to help me. Remember what I've forgotten.
Of course.
I remember. Let's see. I was in a field of flowers when I saw a rabbit in a waistcoat. He seemed to be in an awful hurry. I chased him into a burrow and fell down a very peculiar hole. That's how I ended up here. And then, when I asked the Cheshire Cat how to get home, he suggested I visit the Queen of Hearts in her castle. That's it! The Queen's castle is where I saw the keyhole.
That's great. You remember everything, don't you?
Yes, and it's all because of you. Thank you. Sora, would you like me to show you the way to the castle?
Yeah. Let's go.
The truth lies through the keyhole. And with it, true memories.
Now you may be thinking, who is this mysterious figure? I mean, you pay any attention to that voice actor, you can probably tell that it is
We just need to look around.
a certain someone we should know.
All of the ways here are my ways.
Now,
Only I decide who gets to look
obviously,
around
here we
or
have the
square.
Queen of Hearts.
Silence! I demand you
But
stand trial this instant.
I feel that
Please, Your Majesty,
I-
we haven't done anything wrong.
A lie if I've ever heard one.
it's not one.
More
So,
proof that you're the thieves who made off with my memory.
I believe that
Come on,
Tress
it wasn't our
McNeil,
fault.
obviously
It was
the
the
original was
bug's.
Verna Felton, and then I believe
So that's how
that
you did it,
Tress
is that
McNeil had been the
it?
role up
You
until
and an army of insects.
2010.
Your Majesty, there's no evidence.
There certainly is.
And
I
obviously
say
did
you're
a
guilty.
great
That's the
job,
verdict.
but
Guards, off with their heads.
I don't quite know what
Sora,
happened
we
here.
must go.
Alice, do you remember where you saw it? Is the keyhole here?
Cause it doesn't sound
Inside that birdcage.
quite that similar,
God,
and I believe
Sora,
that is
where are
probably
you going?
I
because
have to try and find a way to get to that keyhole. You should
Queen of
escape while you
Hearts is
can.
now voiced
No,
by
Don't worry,
April
I'll be
Winchell,
fine.
If you say so, but don't let the guards catch you.
who has voiced Clarabelle Cow since 1996. And while obviously
Don't let him get away. After him.
she does a great job as like Clarabelle and all sorts, I don't think that she necessarily does the voice matching as well as she really should be doing for the Queen of Hearts.
That's good. Looks like Sora
Once
got
again,
another world repaired.
some of these revoiced scenes,
It happened, just like
I feel slightly
another line showing up in my
more
journal.
uncomfortable
There are
with
more hurts than
in
the
terms
one you
of
have just
the way
undone.
it's set up.
Gorge. That
But
must mean
as I
the
said
door's
before,
still locked.
it's not that it's a bad job I've done, it's just that it doesn't
And
sound
people
like
hurt
what I'm
to
expecting it to
unbar the
sound like.
I
And
guess there are
for
other worlds
someone
in the
who
journal
doesn't
that are still
really
gonna need our
like
help.
change, like me, sometimes
wonder
that can
how
be
Sora
difficult
is
to get
Your
over.
Majesty, do you think he's opened up a
And
path to another
yeah, I think when there is a sort of preset voice, it's just like you need to do your best to match up. It's why I'm
Got you
partially
now.
concerned about
Tell me,
how
are you the one behind
Master
these
Xehanort's
glitches?
going to sound in Kingdom Hearts 3, because obviously
This
the
world
late
has been
Leonard
connected.
Nimoy passed away, and his is a voice that is
Memory
very
and
difficult
reality
to
now
replicate.
stand
But
by.
considering Corey Burton
It's time for
done
you
an
to
excellent
learn the
job of
truth.
being Anson the Wise and sounding relatively similar to Sir Christopher Lee, the late great Sir Christopher Lee.
Hey, hold it.
I do have faith in Square Enix to find someone who can pull off the voice, but we shall see what occurs on that front.
How are we gonna find out who he is?
What if he forget his accent 13?
Don't worry, Sora will catch him. Then we'll know for sure. Oh,
Yeah, about that?
Who's there?
Chip and Dale must have come back to rescue us.
Yeah, no, that's not quite the situation.
you're
That voice. Mickey? Is that you? I was just following that guy and...
Huh? Majesty! There, on the monitor!
Huh? Riku?
Yep,
Sorry.
it's Data Riku.
Much like Sora. I'm just zeros and ones that look like somebody you know.
Huh?
Memories used to fill Jiminy's journal. But when they were pulled apart and then stitched back together, bugs appeared. It was these bugs that kept the book from being completely restored. Of all the possible vessels to protect the data, I was chosen from the journal's pages. The full set of memories was transferred inside of me to shield them from corruption. So, in a way, what I really am is Jiminy's journal.
You're my journal?
I took the liberty of importing all of you to help solve the mystery of this entry.
Imported? Where?
You really haven't noticed?
Huh?
Huh?
All right.
What?
Datascape? We're in the journal?
Your Majesty! Your Majesty! If you can hear us, please say something!
Chip? Dale?
We finally got through! The room was empty when we came back, and we've been searching the data for you ever since!
Well, Sora's here with us, and Chip and Dale are out there looking in,
Then we really are inside the datascape, just like Riku said. Maybe you can tell us. Is there any way for us to get back home?
Oh, no! Someone's trying to break into the data from the outside!
A hacker. that's true, then there won't be any way out for you.
Chip? Down!
No luck. The link from here to the real world has been totally cut.
Oh, how about some good news?
If we repair that link, a new pathway should open.
Oh,
Of course, that's if these bugs weren't around.
oh.
I don't understand it all, but basically this means you guys can't go home, right? Okay, then I'll go bash the bugs for you.
You will?
Oh, it's so very Sora, and I love it.
That's another one.
Who says we're keeping score? We're all friends, right? Right. See you.